So today I'm with Peter Hartzbech of iMotions. Peter, can you please explain what iMotions is and does for those parts of our audience that may not be familiar with the company?
Thank you, Roger. So basically, iMotions, we work with the biosensors. So we started out as an eye tracking company that most of you, of course, know, Tobii and other eye tracking companies out there. And then we moved into what we call multimodal research. So we work with different sensors and different signals. So galvanic skin response, EEG, voice analysis, and facial expression analysis. So basically what we do is we are a software platform for researchers, both academic researchers, but also commercial researchers. So we have approximately 1,500 clients in 90 countries across the academic and the commercial fields that use our platform.
And so how do these different customer groups use your technology? You've got academics, you've got brands, you've got healthcare. Very briefly, how would these very different groups use use your technologies?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, it is really, really broad, right? Because basically you can do whatever kind of human behavior research you want to do, all human or human machine interaction research. So we kind of have three fundamental pillars, we say in the company. So we have the academic pillar I just mentioned. So that's university researchers. It could be, for example, negotiation research at Sloan School of Management at MIT. They use it to look at facial expressions while you negotiate, to see if there's, for example, if a brow furrow, you can see that, this person is a bit irritated on negotiation or something like that. So, for example, business schools can use it for that. Also for marketing testing, right? All kinds of images, videos, websites, all kinds of marketing collateral. So of course that's pretty normal to test on both marketing and business schools. We have engineering schools that use it for testing a new car design, for example, or how should the door handle sound? When some cars where you then open the door, it should have a specific sound, for example. So a lot of design in the engineering space. And then we have psychology, psychiatry, and I think in the last podcast we did, I think we talked about the original founding idea was we wanted to diagnose neurological diseases, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ADHD, autism in kids. And that's also a very big area for us. So all the medical centers like MGH, Mayo Clinic, all these kind of clients are using it for fundamental research on measuring and diagnosis of neurological diseases. So on the academic side, which is pillar one, there's tons of use cases, as you mentioned yourself. Then we have the consumer insights, we call it, right, which is basically what's relevant also to this discussion we have today with Affectiva. But on the iMotion side, we basically help large brands, the P&Gs, Unilevers, that kind of companies that basically go in and they test very early stage R&D. So it could be fragrance. So how does people react to a fragrance or scent? So, for example, if you produced a strawberry ice cream, then you would have, for example, 10 different scents of strawberry with different intensities, and then what people did before iMotions was they just asked a survey. So it's like, okay, do you like this scent or not on a scale from 0 to 10, the good old market research way. But what we do here is that we can go in and use facial expressions, EEG, and so on to basically measure the reactions and better get a full understanding of the insights so you can take better decisions of what scent to choose to optimize it for your particular audience in the market, right? So that's the consumer insights part. And so it's both an R&D, but also packaging, right? So from the start of the package, how should it look and feel, up to also shoppers insights, where you basically can use eye tracking glasses with sensors to walk around the store and see how, that the package pop on the shelf against the competition, for example. And then, of course, there's the marketing side of it, all the collateral, all the websites and so on. And then, of course, the advertising part, which is what's interesting about this new integration with the Affectiva, which is basically the world-leading measurement of advertising and the facial coding that they do on it. So, but we can come back to that. But that's the consumer insights pillar, and then we have what we call the human factors pillar, which is Complex driving simulator setups. It's a lot in the automotive space. It's training simulation where you have dangerous situation on a drilling platform. For example, we can have people doing research where you can follow where people they look at if they have to, basically if there's a blowout or something, how do people react? You can train people in 3D environments, for example, where you also measure the sensors to see if they become stressed and so on. And then there's car simulators. It's a very large area for us. And since we talked last time, we have grown a lot in the automotive space due to our our acquisition by SmartEye. So we help a lot in the R&D stage of building new cars, but also driving monitoring systems. All cars by 2026 need to actually have a driving monitoring system by law in EU. So that's scaling up right now when we have more than 1.5 million cars driving on the road with our system. But what iMotions do for them is like, how do you measure if this system actually works or not? If you have to look left, if you look out the window, then it has to beep, for example, right after a while. So that's also used to kind of validate that the driving monitoring systems works. So that's kind of what we call the human factors pillar. So to shortly summarize, we have the academia, we have the consumer insight space, and then the human factors.
I'm curious, when you say, okay, it used to be if we wanted to measure how something smelled or maybe how a car door sounded when it shut, we'd just ask people, do you like that or don't you like it, or rate it on a scale of 1 to 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Are there consistent inputs or consistent measurements that, say, from an EEG that you can tell if somebody smells 5 different scents, which ones they prefer more?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. So of course, we also combine it with traditional methods, right? So when we do a study, we measure, for example, we expose these different scents, and then we can see if they react to it with galvanic skin response, right? Do they have peaks when they are exposed to the smell, for example? And then we have different, of course, validated metrics that we look at within each of the sensors. But I think the main point here is it's the multimodality, right? It's looking at as many signals as possible. And these signals are something you cannot control as a human being, right? I mean, you do get these facial expressions, and you also have, basic skin conductivity, how much you sweat in your fingers, and EEG, the brain waves. I mean, it's not something that you can kind of control. So the combination of that combined with the traditional methods is really what makes it very powerful, because people cannot articulate necessarily their opinion, right? I mean, they will rationalize it, right, and come up with an answer. But, basically what a lot of the decisions are based on is the emotional response and the emotional impact, and not on the rational thought process, right? So you want to make sure that car design is neat and that it attracts you. But of course, you also need to rationally be able to afford the car, right? I mean, everybody gets emotional arousal by looking at a nice new Porsche. But, again, is do you have the money to actually buy it, right? So those things also have to, of course, be consolidated into the research. So you also ask people the questions, right? So
right. I guess, Peter, what I'm asking is, and I think you're saying the answer is yes, but when you combine these various inputs from skin conductance and EEG and whatever else you happen to be measuring, biometric measurements, are you at a point now where you can reliably say, okay, people like this particular thing or they don't like this particular thing? Because that's always been the thing that's bedeviled some of these things, even going all the way back to fMRI research. It's like, okay, we can see the reactions, but what do those reactions mean? Wow, this produced a bigger reaction, but can we reliably predict that that's a positive reaction every time?
Yeah, I think we are much further than where we were back 20 years, of course, ago. But I do think that you still need to use the right research methodology, right? You need to know what is your research question before you can answer it, right? So I don't believe it's just something that you test everything in front of people, then you can say yes or no here. So I think it's about make the most informed decisions. And when you make your decisions based on only a survey, you're missing a lot of the piece of the puzzle here, right? So I think that's the point, that we get much better metrics to really decide what is the best option of these ones. But in my experience, I think it's also often how do you take, let's say, 5 or 10 designs of something, or 5 or 10 cents, and then funnel it down to maybe have 2 to 3 to choose from. So I think it's also a lot about picking the losers, so to say, which ones should you not put into the market. Because I don't know if you saw the case that we had with Tropicana. Everybody knows that their sales dropped more than 20%. It was like billions of dollars so that they lost because of a wrong package. But they could maybe have answered this if they had done some more research on it and been able to make sure they didn't pick this particular package, but one of the other ones. And then let's say if you have, let's say you had an arbitrary score of 8 and 8, and then you had something that had 2. The point is here, you want to make sure you find the one that has 2, right? If you put 2 in the market, that's 8, then you're not going to flunk in the market, right? So I think that's really the point here, that you can also use this to basically make sure you don't take a really losing package, for example, into the market, right? So, and of course, the more you test with this, the more you can build up norms and so on. And that's what a lot of companies are doing. You also know we have a long-standing relationship with Cantor on the advertising space, right? We have tested 90,000 ads at this point with the Affectiva platform. So, and 90, not 19, like 90,000 ads, right? So then you begin to, of course, understand how an ad should perform in different categories and so on, right? So I think that's what's interesting now, that these technologies become more scalable. And then the intention is here that we want to make it more multimodal, but we can talk about that in a second. So yeah, so I mean, of course, we get a much closer and we see really things scaling back up in the in-person research. I mean, obviously in Corona, when we talked last time, it was tough times because people couldn't get into the lab. And that's what accelerated our online presence and online software, which is actually really good now as well. But of course, a lot of people, they still like to get the consumers in there, speak to them, talk to them, interview them, have focus groups, and also do these kind of tests where you sit in front of the system and engage with some kind of product, right?
So, Peter, you described the work that you're doing at iMotions primarily as behavioral research or behavior research. How do you feel about the terms neuromarketing and consumer neuroscience? And I don't know what other terms might have been applied to this space.
Yeah, while the two of us has been around, there's been a lot of different ways to talk about this. I mean, neuromarketing, it sounds good and fancy and so on, but I do think there's much more science behind it today. I think this thing about like that people had the buying button and so on, that's not something that I believe in. I believe that you have to do thorough research, real research, right? And need to have sharp researchers that can really ask the right questions in order to really get better and more insightful answers, right? So I think neuromarketing is a bit narrow, I would say. We more like, I would more call it like sensory research and so on. But of course, on the advertising side, it's pretty fitting, right? I mean, it's like if you test advertising, you use neuro, but then again, if you use facial action coding system, is that neuro, right? I mean, the way I see neuro, it's more like if you of course use EEG and look deeper into the brain. And of course we also do that, but also a lot of people, they use eye tracking, facial expressions, and GSR, which is basically the standard triangulation today, right? Combined with surveys. Then you have, for the GSR, you have arousal, right? So the intensity of the emotional response. You have the valence from the facial coding. Is it positive, negative, pleasant, unpleasant? And then you have the eye tracking for the attention. What did you actually look at? What did you observe while you did it? And so that's the kind of standard solution we sell today. And then for the more advanced researchers, we would add EEG, right? But anyway, so neuromarketing is of course, some kind of marketing way of saying it. But honestly, I think, there's a lot of behavioral research that's being done that is not neuromarketing, right? And basically that's.
Yeah, I think it's been an evolution, because even in the early days, neuromarketing studies often incorporated other things like biometrics or eye tracking and whatnot, but they all sort of fell under that umbrella.
That umbrella, yeah.
But yeah, maybe we're just splitting hairs there. Now, Peter, today you are integrating Affectiva technology into your platform. You've been working with Affectiva stuff for years now, right? Explain what is changing and how that's going to change the results for your clients.
Yeah, this is super exciting, I think, and as you know, we have worked more than a decade together with Affectiva. From Rana and I, we met many years ago, and basically the way we started the collaboration was that iMotions, we had a company called iMotions. I think you maybe recall it back in like 2016. They were sold to Apple. And then we looked for a facial expression engine, and that was the best in the world at the time. So then we integrated into the iMotions platform. So we have been selling this technology to more than 1,500 institutions across the world that use Affectiva's SDK or software development kit through iMotion software, right? So it's a module inside iMotion software. So if people want to use facial expressions, they basically buy it through us, and then it was Affectiva's technology on a revenue share basis. And then Affectiva had as you know, just shortly, we are in the SmartEye group. We merged 3 companies together. We had SmartEye, that was an eye tracking company, both hardware and software for research, but also for the automotive space. And that's primarily why it was acquired by SmartEye, because what they do with the emotion testing and so on is the in-cabin testing or in-cabin observation, where you have the driving monitoring, which is eye tracking, and then you, in the future, will observe the whole cabin, the mood, and so on. And that's what Affectiva was really, really good at. So that's why they were put into the group, so to say, for the automotive space. But then they also had a very strong research arm, and that's the one that we have merged with now. And as you maybe know, there has been a long-standing relationship with Cancer and a few other large clients. And we just actually renewed the Cancer relationship for another 3 years here. So that's super exciting. It's a very good and healthy relationship we have. I look forward to dig much more into that. But basically what we're doing now is that we are taking the core technologies of Affectiva and bring them into iMotions, right? So of course, you can still buy it as an iMotions module, but what we can also do now is that we can create much stronger solutions for market research companies. And that's been one of the challenges for iMotions, because we sold to a lot of the end clients, like the big brands, as you mentioned before. But the market research companies, we have not really had the right model and scalable model. And I think that's the kind of what Affectiva has been really good at, is to really have a scalable technology primarily within advertising that is being built into all the link tests today, for example, right, with Cancer. So I think we have a very scalable solution that can be integrated into the market research panels, for example, so we can very easily add facial expression to the surveys, right? And like when we talk about facial expression analysis and the Affectiva SDK, there's also much more than just facial expression and emotions. There's head pose, right? There's distance to the screen. There's a lot of behavioral metrics that are really relevant for this kind of online scalable test. And then we have the attention metric. So basically, do you have attention on the screen or not? Because one thing is that you, for example, look like this out to the side, but my eyes could still look on the screen. So for example, you can also get the gaze direction in not extremely precise like we do with our normal hardware, but like on a pretty okay indication of if there's attention or not on the advertisement, either on your phone or on the laptop, right? So we begin to try to go into multimodal direction with this, where the core was the facial expressions, but now we can have a scalable solution and that we can bring out to the thousands of clients that iMotions have. And that's, of course, why this is going to be very, very interesting for the clients, because now we have scalable technology that's easy to implement, that gives you new insights on top of what you get by just doing a Qualtrics survey or whatever other survey, right? So integrating that into the panel providers, it's going to be super exciting. And for me, Roger, I remember we maybe met the first time maybe 20 years ago now, or some 15 at least, right? At the market research conferences, MIA, AIF, ESOMAR. And I talked to Ole, my colleague here. We have 20 years anniversary this year. And we started there, right? We started trying to sell our eye tracking solution back then and got rejected a lot of places because it was just too early, right? And we were up against all the hardware companies in the eye tracking side. So I'm very excited now to actually get back into the market research space with our solution. And of course, I still have all the contacts. So I look forward to contact all the large market research companies to try to work together with this more integratable solution. So it's really exciting. So they have a lot of technology. We can get it to market, right? So that's why we're integrating Affectiva's media analytics department fully into iMotions. So they're going to be iMotions under our umbrella since January 1st.
What do you think about, speaking of eye tracking, what do you think about AI simulations of eye tracking?
I think that's a long discussion, but I must say I believe in at least web camera based eye tracking. I think it's very clear that when you use these AI-based methods, it recognizes faces, right? Like it's pretty natural, but whenever there's something else, I feel that there's at least a pretty big room for error. So I think sometimes people, they use this just to have something and say, yeah, we did some kind of eye tracking. But I do think we have something that's going to be much more powerful. So we have just come out to market with a new algorithm that's calibration, like no calibration eye tracking. So we have now the world's best, I would claim, web-based eye tracking, where you also calibrate, and we didn't have that last time we spoke, right? That happened during Corona. So through a webcam, we can now calibrate people, have pretty good results that are near some of the lower-end hardware eye tracking companies, right? Precision-wise and accuracy-wise. But what we come with now for the more scalable platform here is the calibration-less eye tracking. So that means, because of AI and so on and training the systems, we get very close to, of course, it's not the same precision as if you calibrate, but it's definitely much stronger than having just an AI prediction model. And because you collect the data anyway, through the survey, right, where you collect facial expressions and the survey answers and all that, it's not going to take any extra time. So now we actually begin to have something that's really precise, especially when you look at advertising, 30-second advertising, right? It's comparable. It's not like it's a website and so on where you maybe move the eyes a bit quicker and so on. So I think for the advertising space, we have something really, really interesting here. And it's not generative AI, right? It's basically real data that we get out of the web camera, where we combine both some of the facial features, but also the eye tracking, right? Looking directly at the eye through the web camera.
Do you see this evolving into a SaaS model where some random small agency can just go to a website and sign up for €100 a month or something and conduct some limited number of eye tracking studies that way? Or will this always be more of a professional service, do you think?
No, I mean, generally we are a SaaS company, right? We are a software company in iMotions. So I think this is something, actually the client can choose what they want to do. If also we have enabling services that we restarted here since Corona, because obviously that was tough during Corona, but we also help people with the first studies, right? So let's say you're a market research company, you want to get into the space, then we have consultants that can help you to basically do the first studies and deliver the results, or you can deliver the results yourself, right? But I do think that we get closer to having an online platform. You log in on a browser. We actually have that already. And then you can drag in some advertisements, make a randomization or something like that. And then you do your survey, or you have a standard survey you do every single time. And then you can conduct the study relatively quickly and have like a dashboard kind of output. So you can do that with facial expression analysis and also with the calibration-less eye tracking. But also, interestingly, we just released, I don't know if you saw that, but a new metric we built in-house in iMotions that's actually measuring respiration. So that's an arousal indicator out of the webcam. And that's really super powerful, right? Because we move a little bit when we breathe. So we have built an algorithm that we have trained, and it's really, really great. So out of the webcam, we can now make a fully multimodal platform that has eye tracking, and it has the facial expressions for valence, as we talked about before, and then the respiration for an arousal kind of metric. So then you can talk about, you really get true insights here, and then make it integratable to people's panels, so they don't really have to do anything. Basically, they set up their Qualtrics survey, and boom, then they have all of this extra data on top of what they did already. So when you test on a lot of stuff and you integrate it into your own methods, it's becoming also much more affordable. So there's a whole new market opening up here that we are super excited about. And then we take the facial expression technology from Affectiva and then make it multimodal with these other features. So we are very excited about getting that into the market.
Peter, you've been in this industry for a long time, as you mentioned, and continuing to evolve the services your company offers, the technologies, and so on. In the last few years, has there been anything that really surprised you that you could share that might surprise other people who aren't as familiar with the technologies or industry?
Yeah, I think, it surprised me how long time it actually took to get the in-person research back after Corona, right? Because I think what happened was that people couldn't get into the laboratories, right? And then a lot of people, they had to spend the budget somehow, so they started doing only online research, right? And the technologies were not like super good for it. So I think it was a bit surprising to me that it took so long to actually see that there's a lot of value in person and like very high quality research, right? Of course, you also want it quick and efficient, but I think it depends on when you use this kind of technology, right? I mean, if you have a quick assessment tool that can find, as we talk about, something where you test 10 ads or 20 ads quickly, and then you find the 5 ones that are good, then you go more in-depth research with those, so that you can do it for a smaller budget, for example, right? I think that's definitely the in-person research is gonna go up again. That's what I see, and it surprised me a little bit that it took so long. And now we begin to see all the large brands coming back and say, "Whoa, we really like this Gen AI because it's quick, but do we actually dare to take the decisions based on this, or do we want to be more sure in our decisions and have a more informed decision?" So, and that's why I think now it's really a quick acceleration of the technologies, but we still are a scientifically backed company. I have like 15, 20 PhDs on staff here in iMotions, neuroscientists, psychologists, all kinds of people, right, that knows their research, knows their methodologies. So it's like, I think there's still a large segment of the brands and so on that really wants to do this kind of in-depth research, especially in sensory. But I also think, in advertisement.
Peter, you're doing behavioral research, and then do you also attempt to, rather than just measuring the behavior of people who are interacting with whatever materials they are, advertising or packaging, or whatever, do you attempt to also bring in concepts from behavioral science research, whether it's Cialdini or Kahneman or any of the thinkers in that area? Do you try to integrate that type of thinking in any way with the sort of one-on-one measurements you're taking on actual humans?
I think our approach has always been that we want to have high quality raw data, right? Because we work with the sensors and so on. So we want to have very scientifically proven data that's properly synchronized and precise. And then the approach has been that we don't build our own metrics. We only take published research from, like known methodologies. For example, how do you do peak detection on GSR? All the ways that you basically get these more valuable analysis out of the system. And that's where we have built what we call the R notebook. So we have integrated with R so that we can take a lot of these metrics, and clients can also themselves take some of these ideas or thinkers that you mentioned here and bring it into the platform, right? So I think it's basically we try to expand the platform to do whatever people they want to do, and we listen to them, and then we enable them to do it. So we don't have any specific thinkers that we have integrated, but we try to take all the proven technologies, all the peer-reviewed journals where there's something we can truly trust scientifically, and then we bring it into the notebooks, and then we make it transparent. So, and that's why we are very different from, the buying button kind of 2000s neuromarketing companies, where we don't believe in black box. We kind of make things available so people can twist it or they can do whatever they want with it, but we're taking all the proven methodologies and put it in there. So if you have good ideas for what needs to get in there, I would love to hear it, and then we can get it done.
Peter, how can people learn more about iMotions if they're intrigued by what they've heard so far?
iMotions.com, imotions.com, right? And we look forward to talk to everybody out there, and I look forward to come back into the market research space and connect with people again. So that's pretty exciting.
Well, Peter, thanks for being on the show.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me.